Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Our guest today is one of the best college basketball writers on the planet. Brendan Quinn from The Athletic Detroit will be with us in just a moment. First, a few of my thoughts to get us started. Just like that, the first month of the year is gone, and it flew by. It was a long one for Juwan Howard and his team. They have been in sort of a funk, playing without Isaiah Livers, and then their captain gets suspended for one game. Luckily, Xavier Simpson is back, though. It hasn't come off the rails for this team. They have kept battling, and their NCAA tournament chances are still very much alive. We've won the last two, and there are signs we are turning the corner as a team. Brandon Johns is rapidly progressing, and he looks more like that four-star kid out of Lansing that Coach Beilein signed. Franz Wagner is up and down, as you'd expect from a freshman, but it is also obvious he has a very high ceiling. At some point, we'll get Isaiah Livers back too. It's February, and this is the month where it should start coming together, and we make a move. We have 10 games left, and not one of them is going to be a gimme. My guest today says this week is pivotal for Michigan. Ohio State and Sparty at Chrysler, and if we can win both of those games, which is a tall order, it could be a sign we are in for another exhilarating stretch run. Brendan Quinn from The Athletic joins us next, here on The Michigan Man, in partnership with our friends at SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Here with us on our game day segment this week, talking Michigan hoops, and it's been a while. Brendan Quinn from The Athletic. Great to have you back with us, Brendan.
Mike, always a pleasure. Many years into doing these now.
Oh yeah, we go back to the old M Live days, of course.
That's right. That's right.
And then now with The Athletic, and of course, for those who are not subscribers to The Athletic, we'll have to give them the information in our show link this week. Outstanding work you do there. Yeah, it's been a long time, and this season, Brendan, let's. This has been a wacky season so far, and looking back at Madison Square Garden on Saturday against Rutgers, really a huge win for Michigan. Xavier Simpson was back, but to me, Brandon Johns keyed that win. As we're watching him progress over the last month or so, do you think the light bulb has popped on for Brandon?
It certainly seems that way, and he's a guy who's always kind of really, I think sometimes his biggest obstacle has been himself, and he's also really the first to kind of admit that he has gone and kind of battled some confidence issues and things kind of in that arena. And the talent has always been there. I always tell the story. I remember watching him play AAU, I want to say summer before his junior year in high school. And, his profile was really rising, and I'm watching him, and, he's a up-and-comer in the state of Michigan, and everyone's assuming Michigan and Michigan State are going to, go to war over this kid. And I'm watching him play, and I'm like, man, I don't know if his kid's going to be Michigan or Michigan State. This guy might be get into that next realm of, the top 20 recruit, one-and-done type guy. He just has that ranging combination of size and talent and athletic ability and kind of, I don't even know if people really understand his leaping ability and stuff like that. He is just a physically gifted player, and he had his size, and he can go out and hit perimeter shots and play in the interior, but he's always just kind of needed an edge to him. He's just kind of needed to, understand how good he can be. And I think these are the baby steps are coming a little faster nowadays, and it was really always there. Mm-hmm. And it's just it's example number 500. Why fans, readers, whatever. The 1 year doesn't mean this kid should probably transfer out. Let's get another body in here. Blah blah blah. DJ Wilson, even at this point in his sophomore year, was still kind of in the woods. It just comes together for guys differently, and it's usually the bigger guys too. Guys with size who are still growing into their body and understanding, what physical basketball actually looks like and things like that they can't just dominate by being out there. They actually need it's effort. It is a want, and you're seeing that from him.
Well, you wrote an outstanding piece in The Athletic over the weekend titled The Xavier Simpson Paradox, Brendan. You mentioned that maybe Saturday marked the beginning of Simpson starting over as Michigan's leader. Why do you say starting over?
Well, I mean, let's look at it this way. He kind of became the face of the program toward the end of his sophomore year, and he wanted that. He wanted to be the leader, the biggest voice, the alpha, and with that, over the last year and a half, while before Juwan Howard's arrival, this was in every way John Beilein's program. The inside of that program ended up becoming kind of a marriage of his disposition and his demeanor and everything else. Everything kind of just morphed into who he was. I was with the team in Spain, and that was really when you kind of saw things take shape, because Muhammad Ali Abdul-Rahman was gone, Duncan Robinson was gone, Mo Wagner was gone, and suddenly it was just everyone was just following Xavier. And, how has he done with that this year internally and things like that? I think he's a guy who can be a little, I wouldn't say on an island, but he for the amount of attention that he gets outside and the amount of internal reliance that is upon him, sometimes you wonder, where is he leading this thing? So if for this suspension to happen, and right, so the details have not been disclosed, whatever. But if there was a suspension, that means there was a bad decision, right? If you make, if you just did something, whatever, it's usually something that can be handled, without this extent of a punishment. But for there to be a suspension, the basis of it had to be a bad decision. And to do that in late February or late January of your senior year, when your whole team is counting on you, it struck me as something that maybe spoke to, I don't know, where's his head at? Where is he in terms of accountability for what, how much everything kind of is reliant upon him, fair or not? But, he wanted it. He did want to be the face of this program, and this is what being the face of the program looks like. You can't put your guys in a situation of going to play a road game at Nebraska. I don't care if Nebraska is terrible, which it is. Like, you can't put your guys in the situation of having to go and play that game without you. And is this a time for him to kind of make a change and maybe refocus things and maybe change the way that he goes about some things? Maybe. You look back at Derek Walton's senior year, he made some mental changes in the downstream. Now, it was a very different situation, but he made some changes in his personality and the way that he went about doing things. And that was really kind of the jet fuel that propelled the finish that year, of a year that looked eerily similar to this year early on.
Well, I think the last sentence in your piece on the weekend captured, what Xavier Simpson means to this team so well. And without actually saying that, you mentioned it when the bus arrived back at Chrysler in those early morning hours after the Nebraska game. There was a single shadow in the darkness waiting for his team. Suspension aside, he is still an exceptional leader for this team, isn't he, Brendan?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Everyone knows how good of a leader he is. From everything I've been told, he handled this, as well as possible in terms of, I started that piece off by saying, he walked onto the team bus and shook everyone's hand before it left. And then he FaceTimed with the team at halftime of the Nebraska game, and he was texting with Isaiah Livers the whole time, and he was sharing his thoughts, and he was being engaged, and he didn't kind of let himself get isolated by the situation that he was presented with. And and he was standing out in the middle of the night outside of PDC waiting for the team bus to return to greet his guys. So Xavier's personality, it's one of those that is so large that it kind of has a title pull to it. Title being TIDAL. Like, if he's going, I don't want to say the wrong way, but if he's just a little bit off course, then the whole thing kind of goes off course, if that makes sense. So, when that suspension popped up, I looked at that as this is going to be one of two directions, right? He's either going to maybe be a little bit contentious about this or something like that. The whole thing is going to fall apart. If he goes the other way and owns it and uses this as a situation of this, it will not be part of my legacy, right? Because if he does all the right things and this thing turns around, no one will be talking about this in 2 weeks, let alone ever even remember it as part of his legacy. But, that's on him to kind of decide which way he takes this thing.
Well, after 21 games, I get, questions the last few days from a lot of my listeners saying, hey, what kind of a team is this at this point? I have to say, I've answered it the same every time. I really have no idea. And the best answer I can come up with, even after 21 games, is it's still a work in progress. How would you answer that question right now?
It's hard sometimes to remember that it's February 3rd and that there are seasons that if you go back and look at successful runs that teams have had, even Michigan, for instance, it's not that uncommon to kind of have these feelings about teams at this point in the year. With Michigan, in terms of it growing, I mean, they lost 3 guys who were basically NBA caliber players. They lost a coach that had kind of molded the entire image of the thing. This was always going to take a while. This was never going to be a flawless, seamless transition. You have a coaching staff that the head coach and the 3 assistants, no one ever worked together once for one season before this year. The closest thing you have was Juwan Howard and Howard Isley once playing on the same NBA team together. Other than that, no one's ever worked together. So, this thing was always going to be, I think, probably a lot more complicated than anyone wanted it to be. But, that's also kind of the deal that comes with success. You just expect it, and it doesn't really work that way. But when you look at a guy like Franz Wagner, I think he's one of the perfect examples of what it takes kind of time-wise for, like you said, a work in progress to actually play itself out. You're starting to see a guy who's becoming, I think, far more, I don't know if comfortable is the right word, because he's never seemed like he didn't belong, or he never seemed overwhelmed by any means. But, there's a difference between being willing to put up shots and being willing to make the right play. You're seeing him go to the basket more and put the ball on the deck. He's shooting 58% on 2-point shots. Like, he really is talented and can cover so much space with the ball in his hands. And if he can get a first step on guys, he can really get into the interior defenses. And you see, the biggest thing that jumped out to me about Brandon Johns the other day was not the made 3-pointers. It was the fact that he put the ball on the deck a couple times, got into the inside of the defense and was kicking out and making plays that you've never seen him make. We've always just kind of known, Brandon Johns can kind of shoot threes. He's not a light out shooter, but he has to be respected by opposing defenses. But seeing him do that part of things, that's different, and that's what comes with time. And I think you saw at points in the second half of that Rutgers game what the ceiling can kind of start to look like, and that's when you have Wagner and Johns on the wings playing the way that they played in that game. Xavier Simpson doing what he did as kind of this just mad scientist in the ball screen and finding every which way to get the ball to his guys. John Teskey, battling and doing his things. And then, you still have Isaiah Livers there, who, everyone on your audience, I'm sure, is going to knock on wood the second I say this, but will presumably be back at some point. You saw the difference he made just even injecting 15 minutes into that loss against Illinois, just what he can do, and just how big and how different it is to have a 3-point shooter of his caliber and a guy who kind of really fills out the rotation in terms of defensive options. So they're getting there. I don't think they've ever did enough damage to kill the season. I remember being asked about must-win games and blah, blah, blah in late January. And I'm like, man, there are so many games left. This really can be turned around. Like, you're literally in the span of a week. And this is the week. Ohio State Tuesday night, Michigan State on Saturday. if they go and get 2 wins this week, right, the entire conversation's different. It's going to be, oh man, is this a second weekend team in the NCAA tournament, right? It's just like these mass swings of perspective. It's always just so fascinating. It's why I love the college basketball season. It's the perfect length, longer than football, shorter than the NBA and all that stuff. It's just right in the sweet spot.
No, absolutely. So it is a huge week, and we could have a big swing by this time next week, but we'll see how it rolls out. Another thing, Brendan, you, of course, cover Michigan State for The Athletic, too, and they dropped one in Madison on Saturday, another road loss. I think all 3 of their conference losses have been on the road this year, haven't they?
Oh, let's see. Yes, that'd be right. It would be, Purdue, Indiana, and Wisconsin. And, the thing about them is that they've given up just they dug themselves massive holes in all those games. They should have dug themselves a massive hole in the game at Minnesota last weekend, but Minnesota missed every open shot. They had wide open threes all over the place, couldn't buy a bucket, but that could have very, very easily have been a 13-4 game at the first media timeout. Michigan State's kind of their slow starts on the road is starting to really become the kind of major talking point in East Lansing right now. And lo and behold, they have a pretty big road game next weekend.
Even with their struggles on the road, everyone is struggling on the road in the conference this year. It's absolutely crazy. They still look like the best team in the Big Ten to me, but wow, has Illinois really impressed me. They look like the real deal right now, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, Illinois, what they have managed to do defensively and kind of completely flipping the script of what that program was, really impressive. They lost at Iowa on, what was that, Sunday, but still gave up, I think they allowed 72 points, which has to be one of the lower totals that Iowa has put up at home. But Illinois' defense has been great. Kofi Coburn just makes a world of difference in the middle defensively. He's just, even if he's not blocking shots, just the way he affects teams' offensive mentalities, it's really been impressive. Their ball pressure defense on the perimeter is different than what it was in terms of, playing out to 45 feet from the basket, right? But, their on the ball defense, maybe because these guys kind of came up playing that way or were recruited to play that way, they really are good on the ball defenders. And then Ayo Dosunmu, I mean, he is just a cold-blooded killer. He's a winner. Obviously, Michigan saw that. But, yeah, Illinois and Maryland are right there on Michigan State's back. I agree with you, mainly because of the combination of Cassius, Winston, and Xavier Tillman. I still think Michigan State's probably the best team in the league. But, the hole at the 4 position is really kind of rearing its head in key moments, and that Wisconsin game was a major example of it. And, I think that the Xavier Tillman's performance in that game was a total fluke. It was just a really bad day that it happens. But, the 4 position is still an issue. Cassius Winston's kind of peaks and valleys through games remain an issue. There's kind of a lot going on there. But I think this is a true race to the finish here. And, yeah, it's Michigan State, Maryland, Illinois in my book as of, what did I say, February 3rd?
Well, a final question for you then, Brendan. We'll let you get out of here. And it's on this Michigan team, sort of circling back to something we talked about a couple of minutes ago. Fans wonder, has this team hit their ceiling? And we've talked about, Franz Wagner starting to look more comfortable out there. Brandon John's really coming along. And as we both mentioned, Isaiah Livers is going to be coming back. And it is the first week of February. So do you think that this team really has hit their ceiling, or do you expect that with this personnel, they're going to be better down the stretch?
I mean, I would be inclined to lean the other way and say that they have not really approached their ceiling. And in reality, what was seen in Atlantis probably wasn't really representative of their season, and it was because they just didn't miss a shot. I think they can play as well as they did in Atlantis without having to shoot 55% on threes and 60% from the field, whatever it was, if that makes sense, right? Like, I don't think what was seen in Atlantis is really going to be kind of the recipe for how this team is winning, but it can win at that level. So that's kind of a convoluted answer, but there are a lot of really bright signs, I think, for for this group to kind of latch back onto after what's been a stretch that really tested it. And, I remember talking to Eli Brooks after the win at Nebraska, and he was saying, if we can figure some things out, what we just went through on that 4-game losing streak will really pay dividends, I think, in terms of psyche, in terms of kind of being tested and all those things. And he could be right. He could be proven to be very right on that. I've seen it before in teams, and I remember Michigan State going through a 3-game losing streak last year, and everyone thought the sky was falling. Mm-hmm. And 6 weeks later, they're in the Final Four. The question comes down to the schedule as well. They need to take care of some business here these next 4 games. You have Ohio State at home, you have Michigan State at home, you have Indiana at home, and the only road game is Northwestern on the road. Northwestern's the worst team in the conference. If they're going to make a move, need to do so. They dropped 2 home games to Penn State and Illinois, which is really can kind of put you in a major bind in terms of how this conference is playing out. So these 3 home games that are coming up in the next 4 games are absolutely critical. The last 5 games, I believe offhand, is 4 road games in the last 6. You don't want to go into that stretch like, dangling on the bubble. You just need to kind of build yourself up here, I think, a little bit, and then fight through the finish and maybe, try to split those last 6 games or something like that. But if they're all must wins, you're just going to be gassed. So, there's more opportunities out there than I think most people realize. And then even when you get into the Big Ten tournament, there's a good chance that the Thursday of the Big Ten tournament is 4 quad 1 games. There's opportunities everywhere, and the NCAA tournament, I think, is still firmly in sight for this group.
Yeah, absolutely. Going to be a fun couple of weeks. Fun next month, so we'll see how it rolls out. But with us on our Game Day segment this week has been the outstanding basketball writer from The Athletic, Brendan Quinn. Great to have you back with us, Brendan, and we hope later on as the season winds down, we can get you back.
Of course. Thanks, Mike.
Quick Hits is next as we wrap it up for another week here on The Michigan Man on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. On Quick Hits today, the Michigan women's basketball team beat number 18 ranked Iowa, the Big Ten's first-place team, by a resounding 78-63 score on Sunday afternoon. We always talk about signature wins, said Wolverine head coach Kim Barnes-Arico, and how important they are in your season. And Iowa is a tremendous team. They have a tremendous RPI. It is a quality win for us. Sophomore Naz Hillman led the way with a career-high 30 points, and sophomore point guard Amy Dilk contributed 14 points and 6 assists. We are 14-7 overall, 5-5 in the Big Ten, with 8 games left to play. Purdue pays a visit to Chrysler this Thursday. Tip time is 7 p.m., and the game can be seen on BTN. Hockey split a pair with number 11 Ohio State over the weekend, winning 3-2 on Friday night, and dropping the finale 4-1 on Saturday night at Yost. Michigan will return to action Friday when they take on Wisconsin at home. Puck drop is scheduled at 6 p.m., The game will be broadcast live on the Big Ten Network. We are 11-12-3 overall, 6-8-2 in Big Ten action heading into this weekend's play. Softball swings into action in Tampa this week in the Wilson D. Marini Tournament with 5 games. On Friday, we'll play Georgia State and Illinois State. Saturday, USF and Florida. Then on Sunday morning, a getaway game with Fresno State. Coach Eric Bakich and baseball get the season going next weekend in Scottsdale at the MLB4 Collegiate Tournament. On Friday, it will be a repeat of the College World Series when we open with Vanderbilt. Saturday features 2 games, one each with Cal Poly and Arizona State. We'll wrap up the first weekend of play with UConn on Sunday, so it is great to have softball and baseball back to talk about. Thanks again to Brendan Quinn for being with us today. He is always a great guest, and we'll have him on again in the coming weeks. That will do it for another show, though. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Have a great Wolverine week, everyone, and until we meet again, take care, and as always, go blue. Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!